path with a working system, and then tried to back into the legal and the business justification, it would have, a lot of technology projects die that way because someone goes, well, you didn't build exactly what I wanted, and I didn't go on the journey with you on the different paths you took. I think having the business partners there to follow the full journey, so when you're at the end, it is what people want. That's key. And then the other is you traditionally will have one organization take the lead just from the technology standpoint, and you'll build something that looks like a shareable database or an API that someone can hit. So I think we truly have looked at how do you integrate across organizations in a different way, and that's really, I think, what all this is about. Is we're all excited about a different way to build financial infrastructure. We're still learning what that really means, but rather than do it the old standard way, and you would end up then with someone like Citi and NASDAQ, we would have been in a wrestling match for who had access to that database, whether it was a shared database, where do you put it, who's center, and then you would have a real tough time of designing it so that others could join. So I think what we see is the extensibility of this. You don't just build a bilateral solution, you build something that looks more like an extensible network node. So that's what we're excited about. While the last piece I'll say is if we had had 10 entities in here, trying to all do this with all the business partners, all the legal requirements, all the security reviews. So that's the other thing to caution, don't try and build the network from day one. Right. I think the network comes later.
It feels like this is really a minimum viable ecosystem that we've built here, and that can sort of grow outwards from there. There's certainly other approaches of trying to get everyone at the beginning and then move together lockstep, two different approaches. Why has this one been successful for NASDAQ? Or Citi?
Well, I think one thing, I would add, I think the extensibility is on multiple dimensions, right? We were quite convinced that NASDAQ will extend the solution, right, as it thinks about future opportunities. So that's one extensibility. Right. The second is, again, in working with Chain, we think this bridge, right, to blockchain systems, we've built it to be adaptable, to connect into other future blockchain systems that Chain is working with, for example, or other potential blockchain platforms, right? So the idea is this bridge, make it extensible in to many different types of blockchain platforms in the future, but you need to start with a core application here.
Right.
Yeah, so when we identified the project, although the private market for us on the corporate side is relatively small today, we've got much larger plans in the private space, but also saw applicability in payments for other parts of NASDAQ. So when we looked at the project, we could have done other projects. This was one that stood out to us as being applicable across the organization at some point.
But suffice it to say, without starting, harder to see how you extend. Because you can get lost with all the complexity.
Absolutely.
Vanessa, coming back to you, in addition to your responsibilities within Citi, you lead Citi Ventures. And there are probably others working in corporate venture groups or bank venture innovation groups. And oftentimes it seems like projects that start in a ventures area or innovation area die. They don't actually get over the sort of chasm, if you will, into the core business. How have you designed and thought about Citi Ventures so that this project could actually end up with Morgan and be here today announcing it? What was the design or trick or just hard work that it takes to make that happen?
So in addition to tenacity, I think we're headquartered out in the Bay Area and just down the street from Chain. And one of the things that we focus on at Citi Ventures is how is it that young companies are able to come up with these new ideas and scale so rapidly and quickly? And one thing that we've observed over the years, excuse me, is that there's a lot of productive collisions that happen in Silicon Valley. Different people coming together with very diverse perspectives who can take something from an idea, which is nice, to something in production. Sorry, I've caught my 4-year-old's cold. And so what we really found is that if you can bring people together in this productive way, right? Not just, oh, we're gonna go off and build it by ourselves. We've all been down that path and it doesn't really work. And not 100 people, but how do you bring a set of people in with a very diverse view of What's the issue? What are we trying to solve for? How do we move that forward? And we do that at Ventures just within our group by saying it's not just about the investment. It's not just about doing something in an innovation lab. It's really about having deep core partnerships with our business so that we can incubate things, and we can test them, we can design them, but we can do it in that kind of partnership that says, ultimately, we don't want to be building for building's sake. We want to be building to solve an issue that our clients have. And I think an example like this with NASDAQ and with the help of Chain really illustrates how important it is to have different elements come together to make something happen. I think that's true always. It's even more true with a technology like blockchain, where, as Brad mentioned earlier, it's a network. So us sitting in a conference room trying to think about what would work so well doesn't make any difference. What you've got to figure out, I love the notion of minimum viable ecosystem, right? Everyone is used to minimum viable product. How do you export that same kind of thinking to something that is going to require multiple players, and in that requirement introduces a lot of human complexity that layers on top of the technical complexity. So it's something that we've been focused on for a long time, and I think it always takes great partners to make it happen, but something that I think increasingly incumbents will turn to, because those kinds of partnerships and that kind of experimentation or co-creation, I think, is really the only way that you can keep up with the velocity of change that we're seeing in the environment today. You can't do it in a conference room on your own. You've got to do it bonded together with a group of people who are not necessarily like-minded, who have different points of view on the problem, but are aiming to get to the solution that alleviates that pain point.
Terrific. So as we wind down, let me say thank you to the very large teams behind each of us, from the Chain side, the Citi side, and the NASDAQ side. There are so many incredibly bright, thoughtful, and hardworking people that made this possible. So for those of you in the audience, thank you, and those of you that'll see this later, thank you. And finally, can you take a message? Thank you. Let me thank once more Vanessa, Brad, Morgan, and Nelson, and everyone here, and the Consensus Conference for having us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Citi, NASDAQ, and Chain for the great presentation. Okay, thanks all the presentators for today. Just to let you guys know, we are now beginning the morning sessions. Sessions will be on the 5th floor West Side salons and 7th floor Astor Ballroom. Lunch will be provided on all floors. Make sure to attend.
What's up, guys? Well, I was trying to replay it for you, but I don't know. It's looking like it's not gonna redo it. Maybe it might do it. Hold on. The website's tripping. It was actually really good. As you can imagine, Bitcoin and Ethereum just like shot up out of nowhere. Absolutely insane. Come on, Consensus. Yeah, it's jacked. I don't know what's going on with it, but I'll be posting a video up pretty soon talking about what's going on. So make sure you stay tuned. Make sure you go check out the latest video. If you guys haven't followed me on Steam yet, go check me out on Steam. Link is in the description. If you want to get on with BitConnect and make some actual money using interest and stuff like that, loaning out Bitcoin, it is a damn good deal. Until then, I'll catch you in the next video. Until this thing actually works and I can replay the whole show for you guys, and I will.